Welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny. Only NFL podcast. One of the hosts thinks Nagy is how you have to act when you want a treat. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. Ben, Matt Nagy. What's going on there?
Don't. I got 4 texts immediately. I don't want a fifth. I can't do it.
Ben is alluding to the fact that Nagy is not a rumor. He's being interviewed for the Eagles OC job. So I haven't talked about all of the coaching news. And because we only have 2 games to preview today, it being the championship rounds, I figured at the end of today's podcast, we'll talk about all of the coaching news. Some might even break while we're recording because it is right now like the ultimate coaching hot stove season. Mm-hmm. We have Mike McDaniel being hired by the Chargers, Saleh to Tennessee, Hafley to Miami, Stefanski to Atlanta. I'm talking about John Harbaugh. I really haven't gotten into that. Mm-hmm. And then McDermott being fired. Today's incredible Bills, unless you're a Bills fan, press conference, Petzing, Bieniemy, all of it. So we will get to all of that. And I'm excited to talk to you because I think there's some legitimately interesting. There's still many, many open jobs, both coordinators and head coach. So we will get all to that. We will get to all that. But of course, we will first start by previewing the games. So let's go in chronological order and do Broncos Patriots first. I know I should start with the good side of the ball, because Drake May versus the Broncos defense is truly compelling, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it. But I would love to see. We have a friend, Keegan Abdu, who works at Next Gen Stats. I would love to see how on his end when exactly the Jarrett Stidham preseason week 1-2 views started to spike. Because Orlovsky and I were watching it. We were like texting each other at the exact same time.
I had the exact same joke at the top of my notes. Where you see the Google searches spike for certain things.
Yeah.
Like when did 2023 week 17 against the Chargers just suddenly become an extremely popular film for no reason?
Ben texted me, "Don't spoil it," when I was watching the preseason take.
Yeah. Well, at first I thought you were talking about Raiders Niners, like back in the day.
Oh no, I meant this year.
And then, yes, I got the Niners preseason film in this morning to make sure I would know what plays you were referencing there against the Niners.
It is sad funny with the Niners because you're like, oh, Siegler, because the Niners are so hurt, you see players in the preseason.
I'm gonna watch a bunch of D. Winters film later this year. There he is.
Let's start here. Let's just rip the Band-Aid and get to it. Broncos fans, this is the question on all of everybody's mind. Can Jarrett Stidham pull this off? Can he pull it off against the Patriots defense? I think there's a lot of things happening with the Patriots defense that complicate this question because, I'll start here before we get to what we saw from Jarrett Stidham. The Patriots defense we have seen from the last few weeks is not the Patriots defense we saw from like weeks 8 through 17 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So Ben, when I do a lot of these matchups, I like to go back over the course of the season, since the bye, pull splits, look for weaknesses. But I really think actually that's quite misleading when it comes to New England, because I talked about this with Dominique. It really is a unit that is peaking and getting healthy at the right time. I think the tape, granted, that they've put against obviously hampered offenses over the last 2 weeks in particular, has been excellent. It has also been stylistically different. They have been aggressive. They are blitzing on early downs. They're playing more man coverage. So all of that matters. But then you have now this unknown variable, which is the quarterback, who's a mystery of sorts. So from the view of the Patriots defense, I guess we should actually start by talking about that mystery. What's the number one thing you're worried about with Jarrett Stidham in this offense right now?
The sack rate, right? I think that when, as every Broncos fan and many NFL fan listening will already know, I was not the biggest Bo Nix guy for the last couple of years. I'm not a big he's a huge part of the offense. To me, it's a very kind of quarterback agnostic offense, and the hands are, he's got his hands off of a lot of the pre-snap operation. He has his good plays. He's got his good deep down to the field throws. You saw that against the Bills. When he can hit those, the offense sings. Other times there's some limits. Of the things that Nix does really well that I can appreciate, first and foremost is sack avoidance, right? If you're going to run an offense like this that Sean's going to do a really good job scheming it up on late downs. You're going to involve the quarterback running game. You're going to have all these swing RPO options. Stay in manageable down and distance. Bo Nix's sack rate since he entered the league is 3.5%. It's the lowest of all quarterbacks over that 2 total year sample. Stidham, in the very low 4-game sample we have for him as a starter, is at 8%, right? More than doubled. And if you go to look at pressure to sack, it's same thing. It goes from 13% to 22%. So we're talking about a guy who avoids sacks league best rate to more of a league average sack avoider. That's going to mean like the sack number is going to go from like 1 to 3, and remember, sacks are drive killing plays. Like, oh, Ben, who cares? No, like 2nd and 18 is like chalked. This sack is a big deal for a defense. You then bring up the fact that the Patriots are starting to blitz more. And I really feel like if I'm Mike Vrabel and I'm the defensive coaching staff, Lord forgive me, I cannot remember the name of their defensive play caller who's not Terrell Williams. His name always escapes me.
Okay.
But the first thing I'm saying is, listen, I don't know what they're going to want to be a lot. I don't know who he's going to want to target the most. I don't know if they're going to try to shoot more down the field because the arm. Like, I don't know what a lot's going to happen. What I do know is I'm going to blitz him. And I'm going to make him make decisions post-snap. And I'm going to heat him up. And we're going to start there and see if we can get sacks and get turnovers. And then we'll learn first quarter and second quarter more what they want to be on offense.
Yeah, I think I didn't tell that story correctly. Like, part of the reason why I did start by mentioning the Patriots defense was because I share the exact same concern, which is pressure to sack rate. And if you had asked me that question 5 weeks ago, I would have said, this Patriots pass rush, I don't know, they're not really getting after anyone. But they have been getting after it. And some of it is the high blitz rate. A lot of it is the return of Milton Williams, who I thought was extraordinary in the wild card.
So good.
And it is concerning, even against a very good Broncos offensive line. So I guess maybe I should give my whole scouting report on Stidham. We can talk about what we've seen. First things first, he is accurate. That was my big takeaway watching him. I'm not saying he's, Joe Burrow or whatever, but he can put the ball where he wants it to put it, all 3 levels. I don't think he's got like a cannon or anything, but you saw him both in the preseason, more so in the preseason, the regular starts, obviously, but he can throw the ball downfield. If he sees the one-on-one to Cortland Sutton or Troy Franklin, he will throw that ball. So I think like my concerns for him aren't like, oh, he's going to pee down his leg versus anything. It's more like, well, what's going to happen when he encounters adversity, whether that's in the form of pressure or in the form of like coverage rotations? Will he make mistakes? Is he going to put the ball in harm's way? The other thing I'll say about him that Ben, that surprised me a little bit, he can move. I think I don't know. I in my mind, I was thinking about, maybe it was because like when they made the switch from Brady and then they ended up going with Cam Newton, I was thinking at the time, well, they really preferred quarterback mobility, and Stidham's he's a statue. Yeah. He's not a statue. He can move. He's not going to give you like a ton of like, massive designed carries or whatever, but even like he will run to throw. He will break the pocket and keep his eyes downfield and try to throw the ball downfield. And that to me is notable because he's probably going to have to.
Yeah. He also he didn't move a lot in college because that was like Malzahn era Auburn. And so it was just like the ball was always out in 2 seconds. And so there's just very little okay, how does he throw on the run? That's the other thing that Nix does really well to me that I'm curious to see how much Stidham's play style affects. Nix is both quite good on the design rollout series, which obviously the Broncos run at one of the highest rates in football, where he's throwing on the move. Nix is funny. He's better throwing on the move against the grain and back against his body with that fast release and that whip motion than he is actually on the run pushing the ball down the field. Yep. But also when it comes to pocket management, he's really, really good. Nix is at wall. He's climbing the pocket and stepping to his left, and his hips are the wrong way. Seeing Evan Ingram being boop, and just finding the window, finding the angle, the arm adjustment. He's got a nice creative throw on the move. These are things that allow you to maximize the check down style of the offense, where because you're getting the ball to Evan Ingram so fast on the check down, to Jaleel McLaughlin so fast on the check down, they have room and space and time to set up that first tackler, right? You see RJ Harvey break so many tackles with the ball out of the backfield. One of the reasons is because Nix gets it to him very fast. And Stidham will get to his check down. He doesn't do it as quickly as Nix. Stidham will, they run a lot of quick game. Stidham will get to the right option on quick game. He doesn't do it as quickly as Nix.
Yeah.
And so you just start to lose a little bit in the margins in terms of yards after the catch. So that's those are the couple of areas where I'm interested in the depreciation. I agree that he's accurate. I definitely think that over the course, I watched the 22 regular season, the 23 regular season, the spot starts. I do think when you heat him up, you see big accuracy drain, but that's extremely backup quarterback coded because you haven't been hit for 20 weeks. And so you're in there, all of a sudden the bullets are live, everybody's flying around, and just you experience the crumbling a little bit more. So I don't think that's anything else inherent to Stidham so much as it is just this challenge of being that first start. But it is worth noting, My big thing with the whole, like, Stidham out of nowhere, what do the Patriots do? If you look at when backup quarterbacks take over at any point, regular season or postseason, the first couple of games are usually the games where it's at its best because you can pitch a bunch of change-ups and break your tendencies. We're not the same exact team on 2nd and 7 out of 3-by-1 as we've always been. Like, you do a lot of different stuff. So the Patriots really are like flying blind here defensively. And there's a lot of worlds where the Broncos can get the drop on them early in this game, get points up quick, and then play on a friendly script.
I think there are, as much improved as the Patriots defense has been, there are matchups that, independent of quarterback for a second, if I'm Denver, I do feel like I can go after. Like Carlton Davis, who is banged up, but I think he's going to play.
He should play. I was just looking at the practice before we started. Yeah.
He was amazing in the last round, obviously. I still feel comfortable sending my fast guys at him and try to draw some DPIs. Let's be real. Marvin Mims was amazing in the last round. Troy Franklin, like, he's going to get grabby, right? And as I said, like, Stidham will throw that ball if he has time, and he can. He really did hit some really nice go balls on tape. So that is something, I think you're going to have that willingness to throw the ball deep. And so if the Patriots come out and, like you said, they're flying a little blind, if they say, cool, we're going to heat him up and we're going to play a lot of man coverage, there's an opportunity there for Denver to attack early on. I wish this Denver team was better at running the ball. I do think that the Patriots' run defensive improvement is real, and a lot of it has to do with the return of players. But they face the Texans, who have one of the worst run games in the NFL, and the Chargers, who are fine.
That's what I'm struggling with the most. Is like these last 2 weeks, I'm like, oh my god, the Patriots are on fire. And then I look at the two offensive lines. I look at the two offensive lines they played. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, in terms of January offensive lines, Texans, Chargers, 2025, 2026 has to be one of the best, easiest runs of like the decade. And now you get the Broncos, who have multiple All-Pros. That is an enormous swing in terms of just how many downs you're going to get pressure on.
It's very funny because, like, the whole, question and narrative around the Patriots this season has been like schedule, and this obviously factors into the MVP conversation, which, by the way, JB Long is coming on the show next week to talk Stafford versus May with me. He's amazing. He covers the Rams, knows them very well. So I've been open about the fact that I voted for Drake May, but you're going to hear, I think, both sides of that, and it should be good.
And you might be like previewing a Super Bowl there too, as well.
I know. Maybe I'm burning my JB appearance on the wrong show because he'd be awesome for that too. But the thing I want to say this, though, to go back to what I was saying, the schedule conversation has plagued the Patriots. And it's just like so funny, Ben, because like in these playoffs, let's say they get past this and they've faced the first 3 games such limited offenses and such elite defenses. So it's actually really muddied the picture because the Patriots, the team, the defense is probably being puffed up a little bit by opponent, whereas Drake May is like fighting his hardest battles yet. And so it's like a very lopsided a slate of opponents for this Patriot squad.
Yeah, and the Patriots, like, they're probably just very good. They're probably just very, very, very good. But they're also like, I keep on trying to think to myself, okay, if Bo Nix were playing, how would I talk about this game, right? Let's not like silo everything on Stidham. What would be some of the analysis? And one of the things I would say for the Broncos is like, this is a pretty good AFC Championship draw, right? Like, I've been dubious of the Broncos as a team overall this season, but the Patriots are like weaker than the average conference championship contender from like a DVOA perspective and a strength of schedule perspective. I agree with you on the matchups you can go after. I do think that Davis, we talked about the grabbiness. I've talked about how Marcus Jones is the sort of guy who, when the Patriots pass defense has struggles, oftentimes he's kind of a highly targeted dude and they're going after him in the slot. In general, I think if you are the Patriots, you do say, I'm going to make you throw me out of man coverage. And I think there's value to the coverage rotations and hiding stuff into zoning and then seeing if you can get a jump on the ball and make him pat the football. But in general, what's going to happen if you go heavy zone against these Broncos? They're going to check down.
Sean Payton would love nothing more than Patriots to play cover 4.
And if you look at how like Nick's does against zone, Nick's tended to be really effective against zone coverage from a success rate perspective. They wouldn't get a lot of explosives because he struggles to throw between the layers, but they're so good at the RPO and the swing and whatever. And so I think you play man. I think you force them to throw you out of man coverage. If you're losing to, it's the halfway through the second quarter, and you've lost to a Troy Franklin DPI on Carlton Davis, and you've lost to a Cortland Sutton Moss over Carlton Davis.
You live with that.
Yeah, are you really going to be like, oh shoot, we
Yeah.
got to get the zone in the second half? Like,
Right,
I don't
especially
think.
because it will probably allow you to stop the run,
Yep.
and the other side of why they've been better against the run. One side of that is that players returning to health. Obviously, Milton Williams, Robert Spillane coming back. Tonga was in the last game, but the other side of it is they are aggressively playing the run on early downs right now. So some of it is structural, and frankly, it's kind of like. And you actually, a couple weeks ago, talked about the Patriots playing more man, if I remember correctly. Or,
Mhm.
anyways, so they have the corners. I mean, good God, Christian Gonzalez in the last game.
I said halfway through the season that Gonzalez was not having the same quality of a season. I stand by that, but pretty much since the moment I said that on this podcast, Gonzalez has been like the best corner in football. And I was like, it's on me. That's my bad.
Between him and Nick Bonito, I feel like every player who didn't make first team All Pro took it personally.
Yeah, it fires these guys up a little bit.
We'll talk about Nick Bonito in a second, by the way. But yeah, that's why this is like a tough side of the ball to talk about, though, generally, just because like part of me really believes in the improvement of this Patriots defense, but then part of me this is where I think the schedule conversation is real.
Mhm.
Let me wrap before we flip to the other side by asking this. I mentioned Davis as being the person I would like to attack deep. Is there anywhere else on this Patriots defense that you perceive a vulnerability that Sean Payton can take advantage of?
Yeah, I do think that it's funny coming into that Texans Broncos game. There was a lot of talk about, or excuse me, not Texans Broncos, their previous opponent. Why
Bills
am I losing my
Broncos.
mind? The Buffalo Bills. Thank you. Yes. There was a big discussion of the size disadvantage, right? Bills offensive line, Broncos defensive line. I now feel that a little bit to a degree in terms of Broncos offensive line against the defensive line for the Patriots because of the edges, because the edges are a pretty light group there with Harold Landry and Kayla Chasen. If you look at when the Broncos are at their best running the football, J.K. Dobbins really good between the tackles. R.J. Harvey and Jaleel McLaughlin were better off tackle, right? We're better at getting the ball into the boundary a little bit. You also, we talk a lot about this wide receiver rotation that the Broncos have, but the Broncos really like to be a 6 offensive line team, multiple tight end team. They'll put the fullback up on the line of scrimmage, and they get these wider surfaces on you, these 3-man and these 4-man surfaces, force you to get into these 5 down fronts, and then see if they can kind of get runaway trains on the tracks and get big displacement and then get those cuts upfield on zone runs. Something that it's better because it simplifies things, I think, for McLaughlin and Harvey a little bit. And that to me is somewhere the Patriots can get got. The Patriots have been solving this issue by blitzing on early downs to great penetration and by playing with super loaded boxes. And if you're Sean Payton and you say, okay, if I can get you there, now this game becomes a shots game. And if you as Sean Payton are able to get this game to, hey, if I hit 3 out of my 5 shots, I'm in this. That's about as good as you can ask for, right? With the backup quarterback in there. I think you don't mind getting to that sort of a 50-50.
I think they'll go heavy play action. Patriots defense was the 5th in EPA per play this year against play action. And again, the now you've got healthy linebackers as well and all that. But, one thinks that it'll be a somewhat simplified game plan for Jarrett Stidham. And not that, I mean, honestly, they did do a lot of same stuff with Knicks, though, where you're like cutting the field in half, putting him on the move.
I don't think they're gonna have to take anything out of the menu, which is really nice. I think give you the full breadth of play.
I don't think they would call design runs at the same rate.
That's a very good point. They're gonna lose the design run on 3rd and short, which actually is kind of a big deal.
But I think we're generally, to put a pin on this, I think you and I are the same mind that the Patriots should keep up their aggression. I mean, so just to, by the way, put that in perspective, the aggression and the Patriots that they've shown in the playoffs, they have blitzed. This is from True Media, so 44% of the time, which is the second highest rate in the NFL, and that's in the regular season it was 28%. So they have cranked that up. Now, again, opponent has been huge there.
They blitzed the ever-living daylights out of Herbert because they just know that the interior couldn't pick it up. They're going to get free runners every time.
Right? Like they just faced 2 of arguably the worst offensive lines in football. And while the Broncos have a question mark at quarterback and he's a backup, this is still a good offensive line. Yeah. So I think we will learn a little bit about this Patriots defense as well from this, because while like the quarterback is limited in some ways, and we'll see, again, we're going to obviously, that's still the mystery in all of this. The offensive line poses a bigger challenge than the ones that they faced so far in the postseason. Yeah. But anyway, so to go back to what I was saying, though, I think early on, you and I are in agreement. Patriots go more aggressive, more blitzing, more man coverage. I think they'll probably throw a decent amount of disguise at him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if, in addition to the blitzes, you see a lot of simulated pressures trying to take away his checkdowns. And then I think what we're going to have to see is if whether or not the Broncos can get them out of it at all. Can they run the football? Can he hit those one-on-ones? And if not, it's probably going to be a long day on that
Yeah,
side of the
I
ball.
think you're going to see a kitchen sink approach in the running game as such. Like we didn't talk about this, but like I think there's going to be a ton of like the reverses. I think you're going to see flips and jet handoffs. I think you're going to see a ton of screenplay. Like they're going to find a way to in the margins jerry rig some rushing attacks, some easy buckets. And then like even if you're getting into field goal range, you can just take points. You can keep this thing within scores. And then again, it becomes your shot play game because Stidham can hit the ever living daylights out of a shot, right? And so if you can just get if you get to your 2 or 3 calls in this game and you hit them, you're there.
Other side of the ball. Okay.
I'm fired up.
Drake May, your next test. The Broncos defense. Honestly, it's a lesser test than the Texans, but still a very good test. I think thinking through the framework of like what do the Broncos have to do to pull this off. We talked about the offense, especially with the quarterback situation. You got to get Drake May on the ground, and ideally, you got to get the football out of his hands.
Yep.
Ooh, buddy, I love Drake May. He's my MVP. I think he is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a very long time. Young man has got to stop fumbling the football.
Drake May, hand size 9 1/8 inch. So it's going to be a month from now, and I'm going to be tweeting about some quarterback's hand size, and you're like, Ben, why do you care about this? The NFL Combine is stupid. No, it isn't. Get bigger hands.
Some of it too, though, is like an awareness issue. I mean, on some of these fumbles, but it has been a problem in the playoffs. Obviously, in the Texans game, he fumbled a bunch. And now you're going up against a Broncos pass rush that is very good. Will Campbell has been an absolute liability for New England in the postseason, and you just saw. Granted, he's faced some pretty difficult matchups.
Yeah.
But, I talked about Nick Bonito. So in the last round, Nick Bonito had 3 quick pressures, which led the team. He had a 2.38 second time to pressure, pardon me. He is very fast. Yeah. And it's very easy for me to imagine him cornering Will Campbell in this one. And that to me, that's where we start with the formula for how does this upset. I think it really starts with Nick Bonito versus Will Campbell.
Yeah. And I will say that good defense they face with the Chargers, good pass rush they face with the Texans. In terms of the best pass rush to deal with Drake May, I think the Broncos is the best of the 3 because the Texans are as great of a penetration group as they are, right? They will give you alleys, and May is good at seeing an alley, getting to it fast. Obviously, he'll be a little bit loose with the football, but whatever. He'll see the alley, he'll get there, he'll go kill it with a scramble. The Chargers, who have the great edge presence, just don't have as good of an interior push, so you can step up into that pocket and you can make plays. The Broncos, like the complementary nature of the pass rush, the way Nick Bonito has like the 3rd fastest get off in all of football is immediately on the high side. Jonathan Cooper has got like the 5th fastest get off in football is going through his tackles, right? To shut that door out to the right. So the quarterback has to step up, and then Zach Allen's just there. Zach Allen, who's built like a goddamn backhoe, just forklifting a guard.
He went crazy in the Bills game too,
right.
By the way.
John Franklin Myers is taking 2 and sliding a center 3 feet the other direction. Like the way that this rush, Jonah Ellis, the way this rush works together to just condense and destroy space has been like in their best games when the Broncos defense has been at their peak. That's why. It's because the rush is so deep when they get 4 or 5 on the field, when they get the blitz packages, and they have great rush lane integrity. They have excellent discipline, and they close space. And May is the sort of guy who, when the pocket's nice, he's like, I can make a throw. When the pocket's condensing, he's like, I make a throw. When there's no space in the pocket, May's like, I want to make this throw. And yes, sometimes. That's why you're the MVP. You're right. But that's when you get May's worst plays out of him, both the fumbles and some of the sprays.
Taking sacks, too, not just fumbles.
I think this Broncos pass rush particularly is well suited to take advantage of a young quarterback like May, who always thinks he has like a 1/3 of a second longer than he really does.
So how do you avoid that? I throw the ball quickly. Last round, I talked about how I thought for Drake May on the Texans, he had to throw the ball deep. In this game, I feel the opposite. I think this is a game where he's got to be Drake May, the point guard. You saw that with Josh Allen when the ball came out quick. He was quite good against Denver. This is a season-long stat. They are 2nd in EPA per play on anything over quick game, but quick game, they are 17th. You also saw the Bills. No, the Broncos defense.
Broncos defense, okay.
Against New England, yeah. I'm sure the Patriots offense is top in both regards.
Yeah, they're really good in quick game.
But
I want to make sure I have my numbers right.
You saw the Bills go after the Broncos linebacker units. Alex Singleton made an amazing play. The forced fumble was a phenomenal hit, but he got. a few times in this one. So I think for this, Ben, I'm really thinking tight ends, running backs, quick hitters to Stephon Diggs. Best way for Drake May to not fumble it away is for Drake May to throw it really quickly.
Yeah, and one of the things about May discourse that has frustrated me since his rookie season, let alone here in this MVP season where he's been much more so appreciated. May's mind is very, very, very fast. May's decision making, like his ability to read out quick game, find the right option, place the ball well relative to those small windows is excellent, right? Like the Hunter Henry, Stephon Diggs mode of this offense, where they're just like 7-yard, 8-yard, paper cut, screw you. Like that is very super computery stuff that not a lot of rookies can do. Looking at success rate in quick game this year, it's Brock Purdy 1, Matt Stafford 2, Drake May 3, right? If we expand the sample size a little bit, Tanner McKee is 3rd, but I figured he didn't have enough pass attempts. So the ability to just point guard this offense, like you said, now he tends to be better at it against zone. Against man, he wants to take the shot. And you got to let the Bronco buck a little bit. Kayshon Boutte is really good on that vertical ball. They get the vertical stems from Douglas.
I can't really use that expression when you're playing the Broncos.
Yeah, so. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. You got to let the rhinoceros, just the other chaos-oriented animal, make some of his decisions. He's just so good at throwing the ball down the field that you don't want to take it away from him. And so I think you quick game, yes, but also if he wants to, 3-step and drop and hang it up there for Boutte against Patrick Surtain, I'm not going to tell him no until we actually get burned for that, because it's worked so well for him this season against top corners. You saw it against Stingley last week. Like he tends to pick his spots very, very well, and his receivers tend to pay him off. He places the ball beautifully. So yes to quick game, but I'm still letting him push the ball if he wants to.
Yeah, if you're not throwing the go ball at Riley Moss a couple times this one, you're not playing this.
Boutte's the exact sort of receiver who Riley Moss really struggles with. It's like that matchup when it's 9 on 21 to me is a big one.
I like Diggs a lot. I mean, you talked about the man coverage. Obviously, he hit Diggs on the cover 0 beater left. That was such a ridiculous throw. That was such a hilarious one to watch in the end zone view and see just like how close the defender was to it. I like the tight ends here. I think that's a vulnerability also for Denver. 18th in DVOA against tight ends. Henry and Hooper kind of quiet in the last game as pass catchers, but I think this could be one where, with the Broncos, I guess to kind of summarize it, it's a matchup game with them. I think this is kind of what separated them from the likes of the Texans and the Seahawks, and there's other things, but they have more vulnerabilities. They have corners, DBs who are susceptible. They have safeties who are amazing, but a little aggressive. They have a slot you can beat. So I think there'll be opportunities in the passing game. I'm a little bit less optimistic on the ground, although the Bills did have success running on Denver, but that's the Bills.
Yep.
Do you disagree? Do you think the Patriots would be able to run on them, or are there any kinds of runs?
This is my big thing, which is that, right, you're not the Bills. Your offensive line is not nearly as deep across the board. And if you look at the Patriots running game numbers wise, like explosives carry a huge part of their success, right? I mean, it's been the Travion Henderson home runs, Ramondre Stevenson, even like he'll hit like a 10 plus, 15 plus yarder, like they run a lot of gap stuff, a lot of stuff with pullers with the intent of getting one back on a line and going. Broncos are the 3rd best rush defense in the league by explosive run rate. They just don't, they tackle extremely well. They're 8th fitter in their box, they're 9th fitter in the box. Like when it's Talanoa Hufanga, when it's Jaquan McMillan, these guys are really, really, really good tacklers in the alley. Like their DBs don't lose to size. And so I think it's going to be a laborious day if you're trying to hand the football off at a decent clip, which is what you want to be able to do, right? Control pace and avoid the turnovers and, win a field position battle against a much inferior offense because they have their backup in. But I don't think they're going to be able to chip away much the way that the Bills did. You can replace it with the pass catching game. And that's why, like, the fact that both Ramondre and Travion Henderson can catch and both of them can pass protect, that's why it's such a big deal. Like, every week I've watched these Patriots, I've become more and more impressed by the quality of play from Ramondre, the quality of play from Travion, not just on the home runs, but overall, and the way that you can cycle both backs in on both early downs and late downs and not tell the defense what you're doing, right? A lot of backfields are like, Jahmyr Gibbs is out there. We know the menu. Dave Montgomery, we know the menu. Monongai Swift, like there's some clarity. It's very, very convoluted, cloudy there in Denver, in New England, excuse me. And so if you are seeing the 5-man fronts and you're worried about Jared Wilson against Zach Allen, very reasonably so, and Ben Brown against John Franklin Myers or Malcolm Roach, very reasonably so, I expect to see screen game, quicks to the back behind the line of scrimmage, and do very much a Broncos offense thing and replace the running game with targets behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, especially because if you feel like to get anything going downfield, you're going to have to give Will Campbell help against Bonito.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get that many eligibles. So you're going to have to be discriminating in terms of when they pick their shots. But for the most part, yeah, I agree with you. The pass game as an extension of a run game, quick game, quick game, quick game. On New England here, I assume you are as well.
Yeah, I think the Broncos are well suited to stealing a game with a backup quarterback because of the way the offense works, because that defense is going to be extremely fired up. They know they have to have a big performance. They're going to be at home. Like all of the dominoes are in place. It's also the AFC Championship game, and Drake May and the Patriots are very, very good. And so I expect a closer game. I expect a lot of fight from the Broncos. Would not be surprised if they're leading at first quarter and at half. They're going to come out of the gates with a lot of clever stuff. Do think that the Patriots have them outgunned just over the course of the game.
Yeah. I think this is one where, per our conversation about Jarrett Stidham and the Patriots defense, the surprise factor could make things a little froggy early on, and then things might settle. All right, let's take a quick break, come back and talk about two opponents who are very familiar. No mysteries here. Rams Seahawks round 3. All right, we're back. Rams Seahawks.
Can we get an emotions check on Seahawks fan Mina Kimes? Can we get a vibes check Wednesday afternoon?
Vibes are good. I feel good.
Yeah, going to a Super Bowl. Seahawks, they're going to be there. We got it.
Well, let's wait and see who I pick before. I don't want to spoil the pick before we get into it. Okay, let's start with this since you asked it that way. For a Seahawks fan, like, what's the number one thing keeping me up at night when I think about
giant looming shadow Sam Darnold Wario behind you? Like I even if it's been a minute since we saw, real bad Sam, capital R, capital B, capital S.
That's a great place to start this, though, because week 6, we'll start with the Seahawks offense against the Rams defense, because the obvious answer to the question is Sam Darnold, who has struggled against this team, who the week 11 game kind of seemed to break him a little bit, and then he bounced back, and I thought he was quite good last week. We barely talked about him, but, he didn't have to do much. Going back and watching week 16, so week 11 was a meltdown. Week 16 was a more interesting performance from the Seahawks offense in a kind of because Darnold threw 2 picks that were very similar to the picks he's thrown against the Rams in general. Well, actually, I would say not similar because they weren't about pressure. They were both about coverage, but similar in the sense that Chris Shula seems to have his number in general, right? The first one came on a coverage disguise where it's like the 2 slants and he thinks he's got man. The second one was a simulated pressure at the goal line where Kobe Turner drops into the throwing window and picks it. So I think that's where you start here is, can Sam avoid the mental errors that have plagued him against this particular team now over and over and over, Ben? What do you think?
So my thing is even if you want to call the week 16 game better, which I think it absolutely was.
Absolutely was. I mean, he made a lot of. I talked about the interceptions. Yeah. He made some really good throws in that game too, and the offense was effective.
In both week 11 and week 16. He started to throw better and play better once it was house money, right? Once it was like, all right,
we're down, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were down 30-14 with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and that drive obviously ends with the pick to Kobe Turner. But even then, you're like, all right, we barely have a shot here. We need 2-point conversions. Like I'm going to be aggressive. I'm just going to grip it and rip it. Like, if we lose, we lose. Like we're backs against the wall. In week 11, even as they clawed their way back into that game, a lot of it was like, all right, big deficit here. We just got to go. It's the fact that he's only really, I think, starting to find rhythm and success against the Rams late when they're in deficits, where it's like, okay, now we have no other hope. That's concerning to me because it means that on the base downs, he's quivering in his boots a little bit. And he's thinking to himself, don't mess up, don't make these negative plays. And so he eats the ball on throwable throws. He dirts the ball and is inaccurate on makeable throws, right? After that week 11 Rams game, he just stopped trying tight windows for like a month. He was, I'm not throwing near coverage anymore. So they're like, it's very rare for me, like, big nerd boy in the charts to say this, but like they're clearly in his head, right? Like there's a very like personal aspect of this game where like he's very scared of this jersey and this pass rush in this particular team.
I'm going to say something that I think is true from both a like basic kind of boomery perspective and also from a nerd perspective. If they can run the ball effectively, I think they can settle him. So that's the boomer perspective from the mental side. From the nerd perspective, if they can run the ball effectively, then they'll get the coverages that he likes to take advantage of. But it is also what happened in the last game. I know you talked about the game script aspect of it, but one of the big differences from the beginning of the season to the second half of the season, is the Seahawks running game has become legitimately much better. And in this game, they ran the ball well on LA. It was interesting because in this one, in week 16, looking back, there's a lot of 12 personnel, which is what they really leaned on against San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And when they ran the ball, they were but 12 personnel in general, by the way, in this game is how they killed LA. When they ran the ball 12, they averaged over 14 yards of play because they had explosive. And then when they had a 63% success rate. And then when they passed the ball, they averaged over 13 yards of play. And that included, I believe, the screen to Walker.
The Rams, Walker was 12.
Yeah, the Rams almost entirely matched them with base. They played the third most base personnel, meaning 3 linebackers on the field they have all season long. And Sam was very good on it. Now, almost all of his success came with play action in this game. Play action, he went 8 for 12 for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Non-play action, he was 14 for 22 for 130 yards and 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
The difference between a 146 rating and a 42 rating.
Right. They had no Quinn Lake.
The formula is pretty obvious, is what I'm saying.
They had no Quinn Lake in that second game.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to end up in base more because they just didn't like their nickel spot, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I think back means they get to play some more nickel to 12, and then you get to control the rollouts a little bit better. For much of the season, I would end this sentence with, and force the Seahawks to run the ball on you. But now that's more squirrely of a suggestion. And so that's where, like, finally, like 21 weeks into the season, finally it's like, now that we have established the Kenneth Walker threat, we might actually have an offense here that, like, is very trustworthy.
And thinking about that run game, because the Seahawks offense has been on such an interesting journey this year. The Seahawks defense has been awesome wall to wall, outside of like a game where the entire secondary was hurt and whatever, Tampa. The offense was like great, and then they were really bad. And now I think they've landed at pretty good. That's sort of, and so because they were great at the beginning of the season to tell the story of the 2025 Seahawks, because they would get these heavy groupings and teams would put base on the field and they were just throwing them even though they couldn't run the ball. Then teams said, "Whoo, actually, why are we playing the run? They're not good at running the ball. Let's put bodies in coverage and just dare them to run," and they couldn't. And then as the second half of the season went on, and you know this, Ben, I'm just explaining, the Seahawks started running the ball more effectively out of those looks. And because of that, you had teams suddenly have to start actually respecting the run again. So here we are in the championship game. And I think that, to me, is the core question here for Seattle. Is the run game fixed enough to where you can keep the offense on time? You don't have to lean entirely on Darnold. So Darnold has play action opportunities like he did in week 16, even with Quentin Lake back. And that's, to me, like, I'm not saying it's all on the shoulders of Kenneth Walker, but I do think that's kind of where this thing starts and ends.
100%. And the Rams have been giving up bad explosive pass over the last, 8-9 weeks, going back to the regular season, whatever. Their explosive pass rate is one of the highest allowed in football. You go and you turn on the film, there is a clear fear of the play action pass. There's a clear quickness from the linebackers triggering down against the run that allows them to open some space back there. Then you get these corners running across the field, right? And even the AJ Barner touchdown, right, that they had there to tie the game late against the Rams. That's a play where they're showing cross, and they're showing cross, and they're showing cross, and Jackson Smith was running across the field, and there's so much pursuit, and then you hit the big shot play behind them. Like, you can get these guys flying left and right. They rolled Sam out a bunch in the second game because I think that they know that they want to be able to get that horizontal stretch and that horizontal flow, and then be able to take advantage of the corners playing too aggressively. The safeties will nail down on stuff. You hit your shot plays behind. Requires Sam to hold his water, right? That's the thing, is, like, I agree with you. Get to the play action pass, run the football well. And so that's a 3.5 second drop back. And every microsecond added to a Sam Darnold drop back worries me as a, believer in the Seahawks offense. Sure. Just because I it's not even that he's been that bad lately. It's that I've seen how fast the train derails.
Right.
Sam
exactly.
is one of the quarterbacks in the league who it goes from 90% to 10% in a blink. And that's you just spend 4 quarters terrified of that.
If we're leaning on another game where we're booting him a lot, the injury is certainly a factor. What happens when the Toradol wears off in week 2? We're about to find out, because he rolled to his left and made a beautiful throw against really amazing throw to
Looked
JSN.
real loose. Looked real loose against the 49ers. Was having a good time out there.
Ooh. But yeah, I love that you mentioned the Barner. I think the tight ends are big here because the Rams really, again, this was the other thing that struck me on that touchdown and other plays. JSN was very much so the focus of that defense. They figured out a way to unlock JSN in the second. Remember, he had no catches in the first half of this game. Crazy.
Yeah.
Second half, he puts him in the backfield, he's moving around or whatever. But I still think, you're going to have some secondary pass catchers just step up. I thought the Rams
left tackle spot also I think is a big deal for me in terms of matchups in this
Yeah.
game. Charles Cross right now is considered day to day.
I was just about to check in on that. Yeah, so
Yeah,
he
so
didn't.
he started against the Niners and then he pulled himself. Their typical backup, who's a quality veteran, been around the league for a while, Josh Jones, was inactive for that game. So it was a UDFA whose name is Amari Kite.
He trucked someone on the touchdown. But again, in the same way where I'm always like, don't underestimate quarterbacks that are playing the Texans. The Niners defense is so bad. A lot of the stuff like from the Niners game, it's like you can't really.
The thing that's interesting is like Cross is a little bit more of a finesse tackle, and he can at times struggle with the angry bowling balls with guns that are Jared Verse and Byron Young, right? Who just go like straight through you with violence. Kite is like, listen, I'm kind of here to hit somebody. This is a big dude. And so whether or not Cross can go, or if it's Kite who ends up playing or Josh Jones, I think does affect stylistically what you do want to get into. If it is Kite, like worst case scenario, you're starting this guy for the NFC Championship game, I expect them to be like 12, 13 and really run the ball, right? Because you can, point of attack the Rams edges a little bit because they're going to play very aggressively downhill. And so you can get rolling on them.
Yeah. And you mentioned like the Rams, I think, would prefer to keep him on the field to not put the three, to play nickel, but or dime. Actually, they play a lot of dime, I think. But
they'll play penny too, right? Where they're in the 5 downs and then they have the one backer and then they're fit from the second level, which that's where you get to your horizontal stuff. Whenever you get that 5-1 look, it's okay. Get the ball to JSN right now. Get it to Cup right now. Let's go break some tackles.
Yeah. It's Sam. It's not that I don't believe, it's that I don't trust. Those are two different things.
That's a perfect way of saying it because like I've seen it. It can be there. I'm there. It's just again, it's how fast it unspools.
He is a high, like the ceiling is high. Problem is I've seen the floor against. It's like, pardon me, this defense. Okay. Other side is arguably the two best units in the playoffs remaining facing off. The Rams offense and
all year long is Rams Seahawks part 3. That's since it became clear what this defense was, what this offense was. I've just been hoping that Super Bowl is on the line with this unit against this unit. I am so thrilled.
Let me start here. We're coming off of a bad Matthew Stafford game.
Yep.
You and I didn't talk about it. Dominique and I talked about it earlier this week. I thought it was a weird game plan. It was a weird throwing game. He was okay against the Panthers. So now it's like two game. He had I would say against the Panthers, it was bad, and then he finished strong. It's kind of the same against Chicago. He's kind of spotted too for any worries a little bit about Matthew Stafford? Because this 2 games that are against 2 very inferior defenses to the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. So what if you're a Rams fan, you got a tight butt at all, or you're just like, yeah, it's Matthew, it'll be fine.
I have a tight butt, and like that's it. If we strip the names from it and the context from it, and we just say late 30s quarterback with back injuries who plays notoriously tough football is diminishing play late in season, like this is a story we've seen so many times. You are the older you are, and the more of these hits that accumulate, and you start playing in these colder weather environments, like you're just not going to play as well, especially if you're a guy who was in the 6th dimension chamber with the ultraviolet lights because of his back to start the season. And so to me, like Stafford is evidently less than 100% just in terms of watching him, right? Yeah. I know that he hasn't been on an injury report list and he hasn't, talked about this or whatever, but just to me, he's like very clearly just the hits are accumulating. Fortunately, he's playing the Seahawks who don't ever, get after the quarterback. No, like if I'm Mike McDonald right here, I'm not a heavy, blitz sending team. I'm not a pressure team. I'm not trying to become that all of a sudden in week 21. However, I'm showing my guys him hitting his hand on the Panthers in the first quarter, and then the way that those throws started to spray. I'm showing him the Bears were getting after them, right? In the second quarter, especially, they started to get a little bit more pressure, and the nickels were coming, and they were getting sacks with the DBs. And I'm saying, hey, if we collect a couple of hits on this guy early, we can make him miss throws the way he wasn't missing them earlier. Because in week 16, dude, I had forgotten that film was just like heavy metal guitar solo
Yeah.
Stafford. Like he was just ripping stuff.
was
And if you can take that away from him, it's very hard to find anything else in the margins against the Seahawks defense.
So I want to talk about the blitzes because early in the week, Dominique and I talked about how Dennis Allen lit him up with the DB blitzes until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned over the course of the season that actually Stafford's numbers against DB blitzes were like kind of bad, like really bad. And it's so funny, Ben, because we were going back and looking at some of our game notes against the Rams, and this was something the Colts did to him really heavily and with success. And like, of course, it was the Colts, of course it was
Big Lou.
But so the Seahawks in week 16 did blitz a DB, either Spoon or Imanwari, several times, and Stafford got them for 3 big plays, right? But going back and watching, they blitzed him in the gun. And to me, that's like when he has struggled largely, it has been when he is under center, turns his back, and there's a pass rusher coming, right? And they're in the condensed formations. In the gun, he's able to read it out. And one of them was they blitzed Spoon away from distance, and he went opposite field. Beautiful throw to somebody against Josh Jobe. Another one, Kyron Williams just picked up Spoon. But again, he was in the gun, so he had eyes on him the whole time. So if I'm Mike McDonald and I'm either blitzing or showing blitz, I am doing it as a mechanism to get him out of under center and basically neuter their play action game, because that's what the Bears did with great success this weekend.
Yeah, and even I was just back and finding it. There were a few plays in the first half of week 16 where the Rams walked out in under center and shifted to gun, or walked out in gun and shifted to under center. And I get the sense watching the Rams that they want to be able to get multiple calls in against Seattle and then change it based off of some of the front structure that they get, because McVay got asked this. It might have even been, I think it was by like Rams.com staff. I don't think it was JB Long. I think it was one of the writers, but he was asked about this defense structurally, and he went on like a 4-sentence. Nicky Monwari allows them to hide this front and do this. They play him with the outside linebacker and whatever. And so this is the sort of game where you want your veteran quarterback to be able to get it to the line with 15-13 on the clock, see what they are in structurally. How are they relating? We're in our 3 tight end sets, but we're condensed. We're like this. Okay, what are they showing us? And then let's change the offensive look. Let's make them change their front and get into a different play. So there's a very, very big pre-snap game in that regard. I very much agree with you, though, on like, let's not blitz him from the gun. Let's not let him see it and undress it. It's obviously harder with snap count when you're on the road, but still see it, identify it, and then make throws hot. Let's do it when he's from under center. If you can generate a free runner at Stafford, he really can't punish you unless he sees it early, because he's not quick enough. He can't move off his spot fast enough. And then obviously he can make redonkulous throws in terms of the no lookers and the arm angles. But if you get a body on him right there and it's filling up his space, he's got to jam it into that half of the field. And that's where you can get some takeaways. And so like, I don't know, I would be willing to crank my DB blitz numbers and like my fire zones, 5 in coverage, 6 in coverage numbers a little bit more in this game, because I know how the Bears showed me how much those one plays can be drive killers for this team.
The right tackle, Warren McClendon, really struggled against Chicago. So we always talk about Mike McDonald and him kind of hunting matchups. I suspect the pass rush is going to go after him more so. The interior is the strength of this Rams offensive line. So the last time they played, Puka Nacua just destroyed them.
I was really about to ask you. I was like, do you have a Puka Nacua plan? Because I don't. Like, I wrote down a bunch of stuff, and then I was like, nah, you're just kind of screwed. Like, you got to sit there and take it.
Going back and watching, too, like, it was a lot of posts, digs. McVay was brilliant at getting him on the backers, which is just... and he was just like, the Seahawks could not tackle him. They could not get him down in the open field. I don't think there's... My Puka Nacua plan is to get Matthew Stafford on the ground.
Right, exactly. 12 for 225 for 2 touchdowns on 16.
Neuter their play action game. Sorry, to go back to that. I just want to add that too. That's a big part. If you can blitz him out of play action, I think that's important.
75% catch rate, 225 yards. This is not even real. These are fictitious numbers. The thing also is that they will put him on the field in some of their heavier personnel sets, which typically, when they go 13, they don't do it with Puka. Against the Seahawks, they were willing to do it so they could play hide and seek with Puka, right? They could get you into base personnel, and then they could put Puka in the slot. And it's like you can't get the outside corner over him. Like you don't have enough DB bodies. This has to be a safety, or you got to zone it off and you got to play with the backers. And so I'm very interested to see what the Rams are personnel wise in this game, because everybody and their mama was ready for the Rams to walk out against the Bears and their injured linebacker room and their bad run defense with heavy bodies. And the Rams had their second highest 11 personnel game of the season, right? They were more spread out and they were throwing the football, and it played into the Bears, right? I mean, like the Bears.
Why
yeah.
did I don't.
So Sean McVay said in the post-game presser, he was like, man, like I sucked on offense today. I had a terrible game plan. And I was very close to raise my hand being like, is it the personnel stuff? But I didn't want to ask that question. You're going to get killed.
All year long, they were like, ooh, we do different things now. And then the postseason, it's like, he's completely gone away from it. I don't understand it.
I wonder the degree to which it's just Devontae came back, and this is actually what they want to be. But it's like, hey, like,
especially
we're
given
here
both
now.
Opponents. I don't know.
Exactly. And
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the answer against Seattle, because Seattle is uniquely equipped to defend that, right? And because when they tried to play 13, they played a lot against the Seahawks last round. The Seahawks were actually better against that than they were against the 11. They only had a 25% rushing success rate. Kyron Williams, on the whole, had averaged 3 yards a carry, which is his lowest of the season. This has been a dominant run game, and Seattle was able to stop it. But yeah,
Now, Kevin Dotson left that game in week 16, if memory serves, and Dotson's back. And like Dotson is like enormous on-off split numbers at right guard for the Rams rushing attack. I have no Puka Nacua solution. I feel like I have a Matthew Stafford idea. The running game to me is the thing where like it's 50-50, because it's just best players against best players. It's just the Seahawks defensive front is so stinking good. And then the Rams, you brought up McClendon in the passing game, that's an issue. But in the running game, they're so stinking good. And it's just like, all right.
That was the other thing that struck me watching week 16, the first half. So I mentioned that over the course of the game, he averaged 2 yards carry. But the first half, the Rams were running the ball well. And in the second half, the Seahawks just like,
just started mollywopping.
Buckled up. And and it felt like every single time a guy was in a position to make a play. So I don't think there's an obvious, like, this is how you should run, or should go run heavy against the Seattle team. They're unique. It's not like Chicago, where I was like befuddled that he didn't run the ball more. I wouldn't say that in this one necessarily. I think it's just going to come down to pass pro. Boring, but
yeah. But this is like when we get to playoff football, it always feels like, especially like late playoffs, it always feel like, oh, it should be like, here's the pinnacle, here's the ultimate, like, let's, and there's always great scheme pieces. I've written some of these scheme pieces where I was like, this whole playoff tells the story of these schemes. In reality, oftentimes it's just like, all right, here are the best players against the best players. Let's go see which best player is the best player, right? Like, it's going to be a Devon Witherspoon pass breakup on Puka Nacua, where it's just best against best. It's going to be Kevin Dotson, stonewalling Leonard Williams. They're just best against best. These are all guys who could have or should have made all-pro lists. Like, and it's just going to come down to...
Witherspoon was an all-pro. He was second team all-pro.
Right. It's just going to come down to margins. It's just going to come down to little plays, spectacular plays.
Deservedly, sorry.
Yeah. There's no way for us to sit here and predict that.
Witherspoon was so crazy in the last game.
I forget when it was. What pod? I think it was like probably end of regular season, where you and I came on here. We were like, dude, Devin Witherspoon.
We just like ran to long soliloquy about him. I know. I'm glad he made all pro, because like I just feel like his season is flown under the radar a little bit.
He's not the best cornerback in football, because he's not, but he is. Like because it's all about coverage and Patrick Surtain and bodies and matchups. But just in terms of like doing everything in the world,
I encourage people, if whoever have access to NFL Pro, to just pick a game and just watch him on tape and only focus on him.
Jitterbug, man, he's an energizer bunny. I love him to death.
Amon got a little bit early in the Niners game, but then it ended up not mattering. But I do think McVay will find ways to...
He's the guy you circle because he's the rookie whose job is to do like 9,000 things.
But yeah,
you got to go after him. You also, I think you challenge them for speed, right? I think if you can get your Konata Mumfields and your Xavier Smiths, right? Like you get these guys on a run, you can be able to hit the long plays. Terrence Ferguson had opportunities in that Bears game. He also had opportunities in the Seahawks game where he's on the run, and like he can win he's a very fast tight end. But the Rams have just not been consistently hitting these, and like obviously there was no Devontae Adams in week 16. Devontae's back, but Devontae cannot run right now. He cannot. Like, the hamstring is very clearly taking the second gear from him. And so you do have to have some other non-Nacua guy has to be able to get something vertical going.
Well, yeah, right. I think that the best matchup advantage they have is Puka Nacua against the Seahawks linebackers, safeties, and but which they're able to get to. But
an unbelievable degree they get to it.
They're going to need, that was the case in week 16.
Yeah.
They're good. Like to your point, somebody other than him, whether it's one of the tight ends, whether it's Ferguson coming down with a deep ball, which it's been there, right? And he can stack people, but he doesn't always come down with it. Parkinson, somebody else is going to have to make big plays. Obligatory nod to the special team discrepancy without talking about it.
Phase,
I banned myself from talking about special teams.
Dude, we got cooked on Jags Bills. It's the first time we've ever been like, here's real special teams analysis, and we got absolutely flambéed.
Could not have gone worse. Could that
I would like to congratulate Los Angeles kick returner Ronnie Rivers on his ensuing touchdown now that we've discussed this.
There's a discrepancy. It favors Seattle. That's all I'm going to say. Nobody clip this. Okay, so I'm taking Seattle here, and I think really it just comes down to whether or not Sam Darnold, if he plays a game that's a B- or B or above, I think Seattle wins this game.
Yeah, I have the exact NFC playoff picture predicted successfully to this point, like 100% correct. I picked the Rams to beat the Seahawks in that bracket, so I'm very tempted to take the Seahawks here and just split the difference, right? At least have one correct prediction. I think the Rams win. I think that what Stafford's able to do in terms of throwing into the middle of the field, throwing into the second level, finding explosives in the passing game against the Seahawks defense is just something that they're not accustomed to dealing with. Seattle's defense forces more checkdowns than any defense in football. Their entire structure is predicated on, we can discourage you from throwing some of these intermediate throws. And Stafford just kind of, flipped him a big bird in the second half of that week 16 game. And I know he hasn't played nearly as well since, but like that's clearly the formula to actually putting like serious points on Seattle. And the Rams have one of the 5 quarterbacks in football is capable of doing it. And so to me, like
capable, but
yeah. I try, like they've had 2 big leads on Seattle and they've gone 1-1. And I know the scoreboards have been extremely close, but in general, like the Rams are the team that gets control of the script. And then this is the other thing. In the first game, McVay got way too conservative on offense and Seattle got back into this thing. On the second game, it's still a 2-score game. It's still 16 points. I know it's a long shot, but 16 points. And Shula's playing with like 11 yards of cushion on JSN. Buddy, get up to the line. Like if the Rams get a lead, man, put this team in the dirt. Do not let them crawl back for a third time here. So I lean Rams, but goodness gracious, actually finish the job.
Yeah, but don't you like JSN versus literally every corner on that team?
I mean, like you said, like Puka Nacua against the linebackers is the matchup. Puka Nacua against anyone is the matchup, right? And it's the same thing with JSN, right? Where it's just like
he also was amazing in the second half of this game. He went crazy. He did nothing in the first half, and then
they didn't give him like a lot of like cloud coverage in a way that I thought that they would. I would expect to see that more. I'd like it's extremely close. I'll be rooting for Seattle just because of how much I love Mike McDonald in this defense. But I think
don't try to play it both ways. Cool. We're split. That's good. And this is like a true pick 'em. Like the lines reflect that. This is because it's a round 3 between 2 great teams. You really just, that's just.
I'm so thrilled.
One of them has, if they are able to shut down Stafford or this defense, then you're getting into some pretty interesting conversations.
If you tell me which team has, a higher pressure rate in the first half, I can tell you which team's going to win the game. But one of these quarterbacks is going to snap, and I don't know which one it is which.
All right, let's talk about some of these coaching hires. Let's kind of go, well, if we were to go chronologically, we would have to talk about the nightmare that happened in Buffalo, but let's put a pin in that one. I'm talking about the press conference, not the actual firing. Let's start with Robert Saleh to the Titans because that was the last man to get a job. I want to throw a conspiracy theory at you.
Okay.
Is there? And I'm not plugged into the Titans. So for the backstory, for those who don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs, basically, I don't even know how to describe this. There was a lot of reports about Matt Nagy. This isn't just reports, it happened. He has gotten head coaching interviews, much to the confusion of a lot of people. And then all of a sudden there was a ton of smoke around him getting the Titans job in particular.
Current Titans general manager, Mike Borgonzi from Kansas City. Makes a lot of sense.
Titans fans, apoplectic, understandably so.
Also makes sense.
The Chiefs, amidst this news, announced that they are hiring back Eric Bieniemy. We will talk about that decision shortly. Basically, the Chiefs saying, Matt Nagy's gone. He got a job. Then the Titans reverse course from the outside and say, no, actually, Robert Saleh is our head coach. seems to be met with a lot more appreciation from Titans fans. Conspiracy theory. Any chance you think that the Titans put out all the Nagy smoke so that their fans would be delighted when they hired someone other than Matt Nagy?
If they did, it worked on me. I graded it for ESPN, and the first sentence I wrote was, Titans fans are understandably thrilled by any non-Matt Nagy. I immediately went right to the well. Maybe. I definitely think that, like, yeah.
League relationships are weird, I'm sure.
Yeah. What makes me laugh is all the reports with like, wow, the Titans got Robert Saleh in the building and they were just blown away by his interview. And it's like, man, I could watch 5 minutes of Robert Saleh and tell you the guy's energetic. I love it if it's like, man, his energy in the room. He's been in the league for like 15 years. You didn't know this about the guy? That Saleh was going to walk in and like, kick down some doors, rah-rah, sis, boom, bah. I do think it was a good hire. I thought Robert Saleh was a good head coach for the Jets. I thought he never got quarterback right, as many have remarked. But with that said, I was not a guy who thought Zach Wilson was a great pick at 2, and I was not a guy who believed in the Aaron Rodgers, end of career renaissance, even pre-Achilles injury. And so, to me, like, I don't think he ever had good dominoes set up to knock down the quarterback position. Defensively, it's worth remembering because it's easy to forget. This team was first in points per drive under Saleh, first in EPA per play, third in success rate. This was not, he had a good defense. No. He had the defense.
Over the course of multiple years, yes, I pulled this
21 to 24.
2021 until he was fired in week 5. You said some of them first in yards per play, third in success rate in that time frame. And then afterwards, it fell apart in a way, not just this year, that season. Same players. Complete collapse on defense. That, to me, if you want a testament to Robert Saleh and his ability to coach, just look at the Jets before and after. I think that this is just one where I'm a little bit cautious on coming to any strong conclusions until he makes the offensive coordinator hire, because it's so important here with the second-year quarterback. If it's one that I'm excited about, I'm going to feel pretty good about the package, like but if it's like a underwhelming choice, Ben, then I think I might pull back the enthusiasm, because Saleh himself, I think, like I said, great defensive coach, loved around the league, great guy, players adore him, etc. But this is a very pivotal time for Cam Ward.
Yeah, and there were good names immediately thrown out, right? Oh, Mike McDaniel, and then he took a job, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be Brian Dable. Like, there's a wide range here. I will say that one of the things we always see when a defensive coach is hired is like, man, what if you hire an offensive coordinator and he's good, and then he gets hired away to be a head coach? You have to fill it again. Man, Titans fans would love to have that problem. Titans fans are begging to have the issue of where their team is good enough that their offensive coordinator is getting hired away. Last time that was happening, it was Matt LaFleur into Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill, and they were winning the AFC, right? They were the 1 seed. Let's solve that problem after we get good head coach in the building in Tennessee. And I feel like they did that in Saleh. And so even if you end up there and you're kind of riding that unicycle a little bit, like that's a kind of a sunnier problem to have than the ones you currently got.
It's going to be one of the more interesting teams this offseason. So much cap space. You got big draft pick.
Yeah.
A lot of holes in the roster.
But they do have Jeffrey Simmons. And Jeffrey Simmons in a Robert Saleh defense.
He's on board.
I am excited.
He posted the eyes emoji about it.
Yep.
Okay. You mentioned Mike McDaniel. Let's hit that one. Chargers. Good for you, Mike.
Heck
Way
yeah.
to take the best job.
Yes.
Because because he was associated. He pulled out of the Browns head coaching. You saw that. Incredible decision.
Yep.
Could not agree more.
Situational awareness. Executing on late downs, baby.
This man's, I forgot who posted this, but somebody was like, this finally brings the Tua Herbert debate full circle and ends it. It puts a pin on it.
Yeah.
This man said, I am tired of having to build something around the limitations of a quarterback. Give me a mutant. Let me cook. It's a great opportunity for him to, I think, get back in the head coaching market immediately. It's great for the Chargers. I don't even think we need to illustrate all the reasons why. I think my only question for you is kind of just how do you see this dovetailing with Jim Harbaugh? And, this is a team that's been very we run the ball. Personally, I think that's a little overstated. Greg Roman came in and they actually didn't run the ball. They just invested in it. But do you like that marriage? How do you like the quarterback and him together? Any thoughts?
I think it's just completely spectacular. Like if I
He's
go
only
back,
got like a 99% approval rating.
yeah,
I
and
didn't
if I
see
go
anyone.
back and I recall my frustrations with McDaniel as a head coach, a lot of it was like, okay, he over-indexed on team speed in terms of the offensive roster, and they have pass protection issues. And they're not big enough, right? They don't have the physical enough bodies to win against cold weather teams in the postseason. What's Jim Harbaugh just never going to allow to have happen in his team, just ever, is that much of a commitment to a certain identity, right? He's going to be no, we're still going to make sure we have size. We're going to have a physical brand of football, and so a lot of the stuff that I think McDaniel got a little bit like too far over the nerd skis on is the exact sort of thing that Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to really well reel him back in on. Also, you talk about running the football and the identity. Just a big commitment to running the ball and wanting to be a run first team does not mean you have to be uncreative in the running game, right? Like McDaniel, I think might be very well served from a head coach that says, hey, no, like do all your cool whirligig stuff in the running game. Also, but we're going to like live for that. We're not going to, only be doing it to kind of, draw as much blood out of the stone of this 12-yard glance route on the RPO that we're setting up. No, like we can just live here and die here, right? With like multiple backs, guys who are big enough to take that level of volume and contact. And so I think there's some worlds where it's spectacular. I do think it's going to take a minute. Like that offensive line still is really bad guard to guard. And that's a problem for any offensive coordinator, no matter how cool he is. And also Herbert is so stylistically different than what they had with Tua. And Herbert has never really played an offense like this that I bet you there will be like some September growing pains. I don't think they're going to be right out of the gate, but hopefully by playoff time, they figured it
out. Moving on. All right, we can do the Bills now. I posted my thoughts here on a number of platforms, and actually you and I disagree, so this is probably fun to talk about. I disagreed with the decision to fire Sean McDermott. You were more on board with it. It wasn't a vehement disagreement for me. I think it was
my onboardness was not vehement either.
Which is like, I guess, look, when you have these coaches who have been somewhere a really long time with a really great quarterback like Baltimore, I do think it's completely reasonable to say, hey, we just need a change of pace. We need to something's got to change here. Let's just throw, some coals on this fire and see if we can get started. That doesn't make any sense, but you get the idea.
I love it.
So in and of itself, I didn't really object to it. I more so objected to the combo announcement of Brandon Beane getting a promotion.
I mean, if you look, when I first saw the news and I reacted to Schefter, I tweeted like, okay, like I get this. You could get the sense it was coming down the mountain. I understand it. And then I had another line. I was like, surely this will be coming with, I said, yeah, gotta wonder if a GM change is coming as well. And then 5 minutes later, they were like, Brandon Beane is the new president of football. And it's the Brandon, the general manager, Brandon, that one, there's not a different Bean. There's not a different Mr. Bean in the building. I absolutely understand firing somebody. If you had told me, hey, you get to fire one of the two after the loss, who you're firing, it would have been general manager 100 out of 100 times.
I think the other thing I didn't love about it, though, Ben, too, is separate from the Bean aspect, which 30 seconds. Deeply fraud roster, bad drafts, no stars picked, terrible free agent signings. There you go.
The wide receiver coach picked Keon Coleman. Brother, you're the GM.
Oh, yeah. So for those who missed the press conference, Brandon didn't say it. In his defense, he would have tastefully leaked it to the media, I'm sure. But the owner, Terry Pegula, jumped him to say, I'd like to say something about Keon Coleman. Basically, he was like, that was Sean McDermott, the coaching staff, not Brandon, which simultaneously threw his entire coaching staff, one of whom is being considered for head coach, and a player who is on his team under the bus. I thought it was a horrible look. Everybody agrees this is not like, I'm not being controversial or brave here. But anyways, it's been disastrous in Buffalo. Oh, cool. If you're a head coach, really great place to work where your boss might throw you under the bus on the way out. But the thing I wanted to say, though, Ben, is like, so first of all, let's say this had happened after the 13-second game. I think people would have been like less up in arms about it. I would have been less. The timing was odd. But I also, what concerns me about it, and this is where I want to go with you, is one would think you fire Brandon Beane, who I think has done a lot with a little at times defensively.
So you fire Sean McDermott, yeah.
Sean McDermott. Sometimes, because of roster, sometimes because of injuries, right? This Bills defense, for years, I'd be like, there's no way they can keep getting away with it. And he would field a competent defense that he showed a ton of creativity this year as well. Okay. If you fire him, the thought is you're going to go offense. All the names I've been hearing offense. This is not a great time to hire an offensive coach. Like, if this had been last year and they were like, ooh, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, step right up, I would have been like, you know what? It's been real, buddy. But like, who are the candidates you feel good about right now? Stefanski's already off the table because of the timing. Like,
Right. And given the way that the firing came down, where Pagula was like, yeah, I decided to do it in the locker room after the game, it's very clear that they're not like, have a guy lined up. Like there's no, okay, waiting in the wings, right?
oh, they've said that. They're like, we didn't have a plan.
Right. And like, if your plan is the Brian Dable retread or the Joe Brady promotion, sure. But also, again, like, let's contextualize here. Sean McDermott's been to the divisional round of the playoffs in 6 consecutive seasons. You're going to go and get one of his ex-offensive coordinators with the idea that he'll be able to exceed that in 1 year, in 2 years, like very, very fast. He'll be able to break that extremely difficult barrier with a roster that is in like remarkably worse condition than it was 3 years ago when you were trying to do this and get over the hump. Like that, this needle you're trying to thread right now is unbelievably thin, and you are doing it with a lot of like confidence with your chest out. That's a recipe for like total roster organizational upheaval.
We will, of course, react to whatever hire they make and discuss.
If there's a name that would get you to go, you know what, I can see it for Buffalo. Is there one that's in your head? I have one.
I mean, offensively, no. Am I missing something? Clint Kubiak is the one that I think is
like that would be the one where I'm like, all right, that's the best offensive mind on the market. Sure. You did it for Clint Kubiak, whom I really like, but still, like, I'm not all the way there. The only name that I would be like, hey, this has some legs is Tomlin. If you could get Tomlin to come back. Right. But then you have to trade for him. You have to send picks to Pittsburgh to go get him because he's still under contract. So what are we even talking about?
Yeah. We shall see. All right. There's 3 more. Geez. Jeff Hafley to Miami. This one can be quick because I don't actually have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah. This is a classic, like, we don't know enough from the outside.
Yes.
We're going to see what this looks like.
Defense, as far as first of all, like with head coaching hires, it's easier for me to give opinions about firings and hirings because firings, I can be like, this is your body of work. Hirings, I've said this a million times. No. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I thought defensively in Green Bay, he was okay. Year 1, I thought you saw some good improvement. Year 2, again, improvement, but then things really fell apart without Mike Parsons in a way I did not love down the stretch. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to say that means he's not going to be a good defensive coach in Miami. I truly don't know. The thing that I like for the Dolphins is that the way they have comported themselves, unlike a lot of teams, actually getting rid of their GM and then bringing 2 over in tandem, that I like because it signals to me this is a team that understands we got to rip this thing up and build it back from the studs. Let's get a GM and a head coach on the same timeline and let's try to do this the right way. So I think if I'm a Dolphins fan, I don't have a take about Hafley for you, but I do have a take about like the process feels better to me.
Yeah. And you're anticipating moving off Tyreek and moving off Tua, which means eating big dead cap, which means you're going to be playing a quarterback on a rookie contract, which means you're probably not going to be that good of a team anyway, because you don't have the second pick coming up. And even if you did, it's not that great of a draft for it. So you're going to have to be a little bit of a defense team anyway, right? In the next 2-3 year horizon. And so you get a defensive coach. My main thing is like anybody who hires a defensive coach this year, Robert Saleh included. But like if you hire Chris Shula or you hire Anthony Weaver, Jim Schwartz, any of the guys even that I like, my first question will be, why are you not hiring Brian Flores? He's the obvious defensive hire. You should go hire Brian Flores. The one team that gets an auto pass on Brian Flores is the Miami Dolphins. And so you go and you hire Jeff Hafley, and I'm never going to be like, excuse me, there's a good defensive coordinator in Minnesota you should look into. Yeah, no, Miami's fine on no Flores.
All right, moving on. Kevin Stefanski to the Atlanta Falcons. He's one where I'm really like him and Harbaugh both. I'm like, yeah, we should wait a little bit because
Stefanski for sure. Harbaugh, I don't know. Like I feel like Harbaugh, like
the Giants was always going to happen for him.
Yeah. Stefanski, I think, in a heartbeat would be like, oh yes, Josh Allen for my offense. I would love, like, it would feel like a vacation from coaching if Stefanski went from what he was dealing with in Cleveland. I'm sorry, Baker Mayfield. Don't quote this, Baker Mayfield. It went from dealing with this in Cleveland to then going to coach for Josh Allen.
For those who don't know, Baker Mayfield took issue with not Stefanski, but a reporter saying Stefanski had to deal with like a toxic situation and bad quarterback play. And he said, well, Stefanski, you bad quarterback play. You never even texted me back after they shipped me out. Okay, he didn't take a shot at you. I'm so confused.
I know we all love Baker Mayfield's, root him, toot him, underdog attitude, but that man needs to walk to the top of a mountain and sit down for 24 hours. Like, he needs a little bit of more zen in his life.
Um, so when this news broke, Ben, I just ripped off like a take, and
Mhm.
my first take was like, "This is good news for the Falcons' best player, Bijan Robinson. I like him in the Kevin Stefanski's scheme. We saw Nick Chubb have, of course, great success in Cleveland." And I got a bunch of replies that were like, "Oh, you like a coach because what he does for the running back?" Yeah, that's your best player.
Running back is employed by the team. The coach calls the plays for the running back. It's a very simple, actual,
You
connection to me.
literally should build your offense around him.
Yeah.
He is your best player. And also, it's an offense that is very quarterback friendly. Now, who that quarterback is and what that looks like. The Stefanski hire is interesting in that regard, too, to me, Ben, because Stefanski, you could argue his undoing in Cleveland happened because he had bad quarterbacks foisted upon him, or maybe he was complicit, whatever. But he tried to bend it to Deshaun Watson, and it didn't work. And so I'll be very interested in seeing what he wants to do at the position in
Yeah.
Atlanta.
I mean, his heyday stuff was the Gary Kubiak stuff back in Minnesota
Yeah.
with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. And my thing with, like, obviously, as we all remarked upon many, many, many times, the Kirk contract was really a 2-year deal. And if they want to get out of it, and like we're approaching the offseason where it's very easy for them to get out of the deal. But the thing is like, let's say the Falcons cut Kirk Cousins, first day of the league year, and Kirk's got to go sign somewhere. Where would you recommend he signed if not Atlanta? It's the clear best spot for him. It's his old offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach who runs the system that he runs best in. It's players that he's familiar with, and it's a winnable job because I don't think Penix is going to walk in year 3 with his body of work coming off his injuries with a clear hold on that job, given that it's a new front office and it's a new coaching staff. So to me, like, I very much expect this to be not very much. I harbor a decent expectation that this will be a Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix quarterback battle in camp that Kirk wins. And I bet you Kirk definitely looked better this year, 2 years off the Achilles than 1 year off. Like I would not be surprised if we see Kirk in a very decent Falcons offense next season.
Yeah, I don't know if Falcons fans will be thrilled with, but when I did the coach job rankings, they were the hardest team because I was like, this is a really good team. You're in the NFC South, but the quarterback position might be the murkiest of any right now, other than Miami. We'll see.
If there was a better option available for you, I would tell you to take it right away, but I'm just not sure there is.
Love the, but it is an option too, where year 2, I think, and he'll get a second year. There will be more clarity and ease to address it. It is a good roster. By the way, I also like that he kept their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, who I thought did a really good job this year, and that unit seems to be trending in the right direction as well. John Harbaugh, as we alluded to, took the New York job. Some very funny maneuverings happened between him and the GM, Joe Shane, where he basically redrew the org chart so he doesn't have to report to him. Am I paraphrasing that correctly?
Joe Shane did I think you should leave, I'm not worried about it, in a scrum. Like they were asking him about it. He was like, it's a similar organization to what I've been to at many teams before. I'm not worried about it. Like he almost did the voice. And I was just like, man, Joe, this like, you had to have known this was coming down the mountain once a guy like Harbaugh became available, but still, it's tough to take your lumps there in front of the mic. I do actually feel bad for him. It's a hard part of the job right there.
He looks kind of like a evil Phil Dunphy from the Modern Family, and I started to think that every time he talks. So yeah, I think as far as this is a good hire, I think
I see that.
Yeah, I think especially for where they are as an organization, I think the coordinator hires will be massive. Or at the beginning, when the news broke, it was like Todd Monken's probably going to come with him, and I said, "Yay! I love that for Jackson Dart. Really love it." But it hasn't happened yet. I think because Monken's still getting head coach interviews. If that happens, I think that would be a home run. I also saw, I think he was associated with Anthony Weaver as well from the Dolphins. This is a Giants defense that like really, I think, underperformed its talent. You saw like multiple players regress this season. So I think they should be better than they were, even, and they obviously will have to add some talent, particularly in the back end. But, part of the reason you hired John Harbaugh is the expectation that he'll put together a really good staff. So let's see the staff. I think that to me is the final piece in all of this.
100%. And like, if you're the Giants fans, you cannot ask for anything better. Like all the enthusiasm is very deserved. This is a guy with an extremely good track record who, instead of guys who you hope will be able to instill a culture as you've gotten in like the Joe Judges and the Brian Dables of the world. Like this is a guy who like it walks and talks with him. Like it prints itself. And yeah, he should, like you said, in theory, also be able to get you a really, really competitive staff. He had, good connections across the league. Has coached a lot of players, good free agents. Like you should be able to turn this thing around quite quickly. Because, yeah, you did like pretty dramatically underperform relative to talent level. So Giants are a team to watch for me in terms of like good draft, good free agency. I'm willing to make some big predictions about the team in year one if they kind of, line the dominoes up well.
Yeah, Monken. I'm gonna wait till the hire actually happens to get into the offense and like where I think, but it does that to me feels like a perfect fit. So
Monken was Baker's coordinator back in the early Browns days, and to me, like Jackson and Baker are very like similar in terms of like their early career arc and what works well for them. A lot of empty, do a little bit of QB run stuff you do with Lamar. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so then other than that, there were two coordinator hires that I do want to address because I find them both interesting. One was Eric Bieniemy, alluded to this, back to Kansas City as part of the Matt Nagy soft firing. I don't know what else to call it.
Contract expired and was not retained.
Oh boy. So look, I think Chiefs fans found this a little bit underwhelming because it's like he's returning, right? The prodigal son returns. But for those who don't know, Bieniemy, he went to college. First, he was in Washington. That was a bit of a disaster with Sam Howell. Then he went to college. The last year, he's been the running backs coach for Chicago. Did I miss a step? You had to look at it.
No, you got it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just yawning.
I find this really interesting because the Chicago run game was awesome this year. Now that's Ben Johnson's rushing attack, which is very different schematically from what Kansas City has done. Mm-hmm. I thought he got phenomenal play out of their two backs, Swift and Munungai. Arguably Swift's best year of his career, right?
Oh, yes.
And so, I have said over and over, Kansas City needs to rediscover and rejuvenate its run game. So while there is a little bit of like, oh, of course, they're going, what do they know? It's Andy. Things going to really change. Andy still calls the plays no matter what. Then I am curious to see if Bieniemy what he brings back with him from his time in Chicago, and if it influences any backs that they choose to add, because I think that running back room also has to be addressed.
Yeah, Pacheco's a free agent as well, and so they have like the space and the carries to give to a guy. I will believe it when I see it.
Yeah,
I wish I could share with you your belief. I want to be there. I was very big on like, get a different voice in the room, get a guy, different like schematic influences. Let's be able to talk about things different ways. Let's get creative and let's innovate. And they got a guy who for the last 3 years has not been in the building. However, he was the old offensive coordinator, right? And I worry the degree to which they think, okay, if we just run back to like he was offensive coordinator from 2019 to 22 or 2018 to 22, excuse me. Okay, and like that's when we got Mahomes. That's when it was all hunky dory. So like this will just perpetuate itself. It's not that neat and tidy. Like we live in a different world than we lived then. So I'm fearful of it's all going to look much the same. We just think because we get replaced the guy, like he'll solve problems for us in the margins. I do think that like because the outgoing guy is Matt Nagy, there's probably some truth to that. But I don't know just how much innovation he'll be able to bring with 1 year in Chicago. That's
it's always a hard thing though with Kansas City, right? Because like who can you really hire with Andy Reid? It complicates the picture. He's still going to call plays. How much flexibility will he? I actually think like the far bigger question than the coordinator hire for me was always just like, how is Andy going to attack this offseason?
Yeah.
And so that's a different part. Okay, so the final piece, Drew Petzing to the Lions. So for those who don't know, Petzing was the tight ends coach for the Browns. He had another quarterbacks with the Browns, I think, before becoming the offensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of similar offensive DNA to some of the guys we've talked about. That was Stefanski. In Arizona at first, he had a lot of success and was kind of like the hipster fave. Mm-hmm. And then things kind of fell off a cliff last year. Some of that had to do, of course, with the quarterback situation, but even before Kyler and before James Conner crucially got hurt, they were still not very good at running the football. And then the hipsters turned on him and wondered if Clayton Adams leaving was a bigger factor.
A true new goat.
So he joins the Lions. Another interesting situation because now you have a head coach who's taken back play calling before, right? Which always has a little bit of tang to it. Dan Campbell. On paper, this makes a lot of sense to me. Shared DNA, under center, outside zone, tight end usage, etc. Play action heavy offense. But I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure Cardinals fans are screaming this is a guy who's lost a little bit of luster over the last year. So what are your thoughts, other than anything I said, about Petzing and the Lions?
Yeah, no, I immediately tweeted it. I was like, I feel like this is a solid hire. And I had 45,000 Cardinals fans being like, actually, I would kill this man on the street if I found him. And I was
You
like,
never watch the
okay.
Cardinals. Why you dare? You don't watch the Cardinals
Yeah.
fans love to tell you don't watch the Cardinals.
No, I immediately got hit with
Definitely,
and once again, proof that the national media. And I was like, I'm sorry, I know who Drew Petzing is. Like, I feel like I clear a very low bar for Cardinals knowledge. Regardless, Petzing, I think the DNA point you bring up is a good one. He overlapped with offensive line coach Hank Fraley together in Minnesota. And I think a big part of Petzing's experience with and without Clayton Adams was, holy smokes, they lost a lot in the running game when Clayton Adams left. Fraley's now the running game coordinator in Detroit anyway. And so I think there's going to be a much better marriage, a much better connection between run and pass, the way there was when Ben Johnson was there, that they certainly lost under Morton and then under Campbell. I think he runs the sort of passing game and offense that works very well for Jared Goff. He knows how to make a quarterback like this work. Like they've all been in the same system before. So to me, like it's a very like on the beaten path, solid B hire. And I understand that Lions fans felt like, man, we're the Dan Campbell team, we're the Ben Johnson team. Like offensive coordinators will be lining up to come here. Yeah, and you didn't get like the coolest, sexiest name of Mike McDaniel, but to me, like Petzing is going to much more reliably than Morton, because who obviously was a two-time offensive coordinator for 25 years, well, much more reliably than Morton, just keep the train on the tracks for the offense. Let the easy buckets be the easy buckets. When you have St. Brown, when you have Gibbs, when you have J-Mo, like you don't need to reinvent the wheel hill. Just run good stuff and call it in a good order and you'll be fine.
The thing I'll say about the Lions too is like, I just didn't feel like scheme was the problem. Not that it was perfect, certainly throughout the course of the year, but like, yeah, that when I think about like the offense and the bad games and what went wrong, my first thought isn't like, ooh, man, the play calling was so bad. It was the line needs work. Line. So, I think Lions fans would, I don't know if they'd agree or disagree. Actually, I was about to say they'd agree, but I don't know.
My thing is like, if I went through what Detroit went through, I would not want the sexiest offensive coordinator name. Get me a guy who's going to take him 2 or 3 years to rehabilitate his image. Let's get a little stability in the building. All right. And no more head coaches in waiting over here.
All right. Did I forget anything else? Nothing broke while we were taping. So those are our thoughts. Right after. Next week, as I mentioned, I will be doing discussing the championship round, and then I'm going to be discussing all of the NFL awards. Ben, you can tell me who you ended up picking. I actually haven't talked to you about this. I assume you're also, I know you're on May as well, but we haven't talked. Puka and JSN, I'm not going to tip my hand here. I literally changed my mind probably 20 times between them. I think that's the closest I've ever had a vote on any vote since I've become an AP voter.
There's no player who could win Offensive Player of the Year who I would be mad at, right? If Bijan comes out of nowhere, dark horses, I'll be like, that's very deserved given the season he had. It's an unbelievably stacked year.
Wildly difficult.
My Offensive Player of the Year vote would have been probably Puka, but as someone who doesn't actually have to labor over a vote, I can just say that from my heart and not actually like dive into it. And who knows if that's what it would have been.
The other one I want to know is your Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that's another close one. I actually genuinely have no idea who's going to win that.
Defensive Rookie of the Year? To me, it's clear Schlesinger. Like, Minori was good, but Schlesinger to me was like lights out 17 weeks of the season.
We'll see. I don't know, because there's no sacks leader, right? And that always complicates things.
Right.
I wonder if... Has DPOI ever been unanimous? Because it's obviously Myles Garrett. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Anyways, I don't want to give away too much of that pod, but
Lawrence Taylor, I feel like definitely did once.
That's pretty rarefied air. So JB and I will be talking about all the awards: Coach of the Year, Assistant Coach of the Year, MVP. Like I said, he's going to give us a real insight into the Rams side of things. So I think it'll be a great conversation. And then after that, we're at the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, right, in person. What's up?
Just one pod that week comes out at the beginning of the week, the Super Bowl preview. Yeah, we'll see. Excited. I'm nervous. Thank you, as always, to friends at Omaha Productions who make this pod: Kirsten Specky, Owen Saylor, Jack Foster, Tucker Tashton. I'm also recapping The Traitors and Fallout still with David Dennis Jr. on my television pod, which is called Viewer Discretion. Have you ever watched The Traitors?
No, but somebody explained it to me recently, and I was confused and upset.
Donna Kelsey got eliminated pretty early.
Somebody told me, they were like, yeah, Donna Kelsey's on. I was like, just because she's the Kelsey's mom? And they're like, yeah. I was like, I will never understand reality television. It is a black box to me.
She was liable because the whole time she was like, I don't know why I'm here. It was great.
All I know is
such a classic.
Everybody is greatly celebrating the downfall of one particular sports media adjacent figure. And I am also, from far away, celebrating that downfall as well.
Go check it out. viewer discretion, and I'll see you guys next week.